Welcome to the a la carte library. This session will share ideas and methods for offering asynchronous instruction to your law school community, prepared and served up by the law librarians at UGA's School of Law. Wherever you are zooming in from for CALICon this year, and whatever time of day it is, we sure hope your stomach isn't empty. Get ready for some mouth-watering content. First up, our primary analogy, the bento box, which we feel is an excellent way to illustrate the benefits of modular asynchronous instruction.
Our approach to delivering educational content has been to offer as many different types of programming and using as many delivery methods as we can think of. We then offer all of this material to our students as educational materials, regardless of the delivery method. In this way, the approach is modular in that everything sort of fits together as a whole unit, but it's also made of discrete parts that students can select from. So a little bit like choosing what you want to eat from a bento box, this approach allows our students to pick and choose the lessons that interest them and the delivery methods that appeal to them or work best for them. One benefit of working in the online space is that it opens up the educational methods that maybe are a little more difficult in in-person instruction. And we've been trying to embrace as many as we can to deliver educational material to our students in the most effective ways possible.
And I'm going to talk about baby spinach. Now, if you just heard spinach and you thought for even just a moment of Popeye taking a big can of the stuff and squeezing it, all that slimy green stuff flies out, and there's part of you at some point had that image of like, oh. Okay, so take that, oh. Yeah, that is what our students feel when they have to format their 1L brief. Writing a brief is hard enough. And then you have to do all sorts of crazy different page numbers, come up with a table of contents, come up with a table of authorities. So much stuff is going on. But spinach can be really tasty, either just by itself, or spruced up part of it. It can be incredibly delicious. You just have to kind of approach it with that mindset. So that's what I do. I try to make the formatting the brief as fun and engaging as possible. So there's just lots of, let's look at all the cool stuff that Microsoft Word has to offer you. I really try to emphasize the really interesting and cool tools that are available in Microsoft Word and how these tools aren't only helpful for formatting the brief, they're also going to be helpful throughout the rest of their law school career, as well as their legal career, just knowing how styles work, for example, or how to make an automatic table of contents. These things are going to not only help you write a good brief, they'll also help you come up with better outlines, and they'll just make your practice easier. You're just coming up with documents that much more simply and efficiently. That's the thesis behind baby spinach. You really have to kind of lay it all out there. You really have to work with your spinach, but when you do, not only are you getting something tasty, you're also getting something really helpful and healthy.
Our session was called Adapt, Improve, Overcome, Revisiting Studying for Law School. But I really wanted to call it Everything You Think You Know About Studying is Wrong. We decided to schedule this as a live session in January, soon after the 1Ls got their first set of grades. This is when half our students find out that they are in the bottom half of the class for the first time in their life. We're really glad we decided to record it, as only one person attended the live session on Zoom. My colleague, Savannah Nolan, did the first part of the presentation, which was about recognizing that law school is really one giant independent study course. No one is going to make you do the work. You have to figure out your own discipline and motivation and structure to learn all the material. In the second part, I talked about evidence-based learning and cognitive theory, covering specific techniques on how the brain learns new information. Traditional study methods, rereading your notes and highlighting your casebook, actually give you a false sense of security that you know the information. Flashcards, if you are honest and do not peek, are a much more successful method. Rather than thinking of your brain as a sponge where you just pour in the information, it's much more helpful to focus on how many times you pull the information out. That's called retrieval, And the more you do it, the better you learn. A nice cup of tea solves everything, and so does a pre-recorded video. The pre-recorded video format is a great way to provide just-in-time content. Keep the video short and sweet, and students can watch whenever they have a need for that information. In March 2020, our Career Development Office had asked for a video on the professional use of email. Amy Taylor and I met to figure out what we wanted to cover and how to structure the presentation. But we hadn't had a chance to create the slide deck or record the video before we were all sent home. Working from home, we figured out how to make the recording remotely from our separate locations. I began with Englishman Richard Susskind's famous 1996 quote that email would soon become the principal means by which lawyers and clients would communicate, at which point he was nearly drummed out of the profession. But of course, he was right. After I finished serving up the basics of email etiquette, Amy demonstrated several different techniques on how to manage your email inbox. And Career Development was very happy with our final product. Almost a year later, in spring 2021, we had heard some feedback that our 1L students wanted more Blue Book. So even though our formal legal research classes were over, TJ Streepy recorded 3 Blue Book videos: basic format for cases, key tables for cases, and signals. Each video is 5 minutes or less. And in this way, he provided more support for our students as they embarked on writing their appellate briefs. He broke the content up into manageable, bite-sized pieces to be easily digested.
One of the ways to teach students an experiential skill is by demonstration. And in practice, students often say that they wish they had a way to review the demonstration because they struggled to follow the steps in real time. Demonstration videos can solve this problem because students can watch them on their own time and as many times as they need. You can also have students watch the videos before class so that class time can be spent on higher level skills. I made several videos for each of my research classes this semester, and I aimed for each video to be 5 minutes or less in length. I also moved at a much slower pace so that students could really take in what I was doing and follow along. I broke down each skill, such as researching and updating cases, into its component parts, and I made a separate video for each one. I used Westlaw, Lexis, and Bloomberg, and I compared each platform as we went along so that students could also learn how to evaluate databases.
So we selected cooking with nitrogen as our theme for our content because the thesis we wanted to go with is that we're producing content that approaches something we're used to doing very simply, teaching and composing class material, but we're doing it in a complex but approachable way.
When faculty had to shift online, understandably, some were at a loss as to how to make this transition. So we quickly put together some guides and video content to help them figure it out. We basically repackaged knowledge that we already had, such as how to use Zoom and Kaltura, how to upload and format content, and we put it into easily accessible and manageable formats. It looked really complicated, much like cooking with nitrogen, but it was pretty straightforward.
Now, what wasn't straightforward was putting together our open educational resources LibGuide. That was a huge effort, about 7 different librarians, 2 different intra-library teams, and a whole lot of research assistants kind of working in the background. So it was very much a duck on the surface with the feet paddling, furiously under the water. But the end result was fantastic. It's this extensive, comprehensive LibGuide with all sorts of incredible infographics, easy to use and understand material, and all presented in a really straightforward way. And you never saw any of the chaos that was going on in the background.
Another example of programming that we offered was when we used a hybrid synchronous and asynchronous model. for some programming we did for Open Access Week. We hosted a screening of The Internet's Own Boy, a documentary about Reddit founder and open access advocate Aaron Swartz. The screening itself was live, and we had it was sort of an interesting method because we had a bunch of attendees and we had a faculty Q&A session to kick things off. But then we also recorded the session and provided information to our students to encourage them to watch and discuss offline if they weren't able to make the screening. In this way, we think that this is a great pour-over coffee in that it was both bespoke because it was created for the people who were there on the day, but also easily reproducible for later viewers. It was still great in both methods.
Like many of you, we had to rethink events and offerings over the past year, and one of those events was orientation. While our law school's orientation was a hybrid of virtual and socially distanced in-person content, the Law Library did not feel safe hosting our usual Law Library Fest. We were able to use some leftovers in the form of the previous year's library tour video and spice it up with some new COVID-related guidance and signage. We omitted parts of the library that would be closed off to students during the pandemic, like our basement and some offices. To introduce ourselves to the incoming 1L class, each library employee sent in a short introduction of themselves. This was during the summer, so many folks recorded themselves at home in casual summer clothes, and others were in the office where they felt most productive and comfortable. Rachel skillfully combined all of these short introductions, submitted in a variety of formats, into one cohesive welcome video for our newest students. Seemingly random but delicious pieces came together on a tastefully arranged board for a perfect meal. Our charcuterie board of content was offered asynchronously on our YouTube channel, as well as part of the orientation course on the law school's learning management system. We plan to use these asynchronous resources even when we go back to in-person events. Before we close, we wanted you all to get a taste of a small slice of our virtual asynchronous orientation programming. Enjoy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. Hello, and welcome to my office/living room. And by office/living room, I mean law school. And by welcome, I mean welcome. My name is Jason Tabinis, and I am the Information Technology Librarian. I look forward to seeing you in the law school, in the library, maybe if you're lucky, in my legal research class. Now, if you'd excuse me.
Thanks to the CALICon team for serving up this presentation as part of their programming for 2021. If you have any questions about any of the items we shared here, feel free to reach out to one of our law librarian chefs directly by email. We also look forward to answering and discussing any questions you have in the Q&A or the forum for CALICon. In the chat and on our session's CALICon webpage, look for the handout link with our LibGuide, email blast, and video URL examples so you can experience our menu for yourself. Bon appetit.